Hey, everybody. I would love to introduce a dear friend of mine, Molly Engel. Molly Engel, she's a life coach and she is on a mission to help women, especially empaths and highly sensitive people, move past burnout and live lives that they truly love. Molly lives in Michigan and she balances homeschooling her two kids while supporting her firefighter husband. Her own struggles with chronic fatigue and idiopathic hypersomnia taught her the importance of honoring her needs, and now she is truly passionate about helping others do the same. Molly is all about balance and ease and self care. She works with moms, entrepreneurs, and coaches to create lives that align with their values every day. So, through Molly's self discovery, she found her people, social sellers and coaches who are sensitive, empathic, and know the weight of chronic challenges. She helps those of us who feel very misunderstood to find a real connection and belonging. I have had the privilege of getting coached by Molly several times, and she is just such a treat, such a joy to have on. I would love to welcome Molly Engel. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here with you, Rachel.
First of all, everybody, Molly has coached me numerous times, and we are both empaths, and we both went through the life coach school and got certified, and that's just how we know each other. So, if you could tell us a little bit about your background as an empath and a life and business coach, and what drew you into this work.
Yeah, so I think I spent the majority of my life not understanding that any of those things were true about me. And I was just simply trying to keep up with what I have a twin sister. So I think that's an important note because it's this constant comparison, this constant mirror of what your expectations are around who you think you should be the most like in the world. And so I just always thought, there's something wrong with me. There's something broken with me. There's something about me that needs to be fixed because I don't think anyone else sees the world or experiences the world that I do. So clearly, something's wrong with my routine or my schedule or what I'm eating or thinking or reading or not doing. So I spent the majority of my latter high school into my college days just really always trying to fine tune those things, always assuming that I was the problem and that the way that I experienced things was somehow wrong in comparison. This led me on an interesting journey, right? An interesting path with the careers that I chose, the way that just the way that I was around other people in the world, just always with that facade of trying to keep up and almost like that negative self-talk that presents itself in regular conversations where I trained myself to talk about myself and to think about myself negatively or to somehow
Yeah.
shame the gifts that I was experiencing about myself as not being, I don't know, polished or popular enough. So I entered into this phase after I became a new mother where I was going to try this whole work from home thing. And I started this social selling career. And I partnered with my twin sister, among other people, in this new industry at the time of social selling. And this was the best decision of my entire life because it was the most catastrophic meeting of myself that I'd ever encountered. To not only have the weight or the burden of new or early motherhood on my plate, but then to also simultaneously have to encounter myself online every day, the rejection, the criticism, the critique, the overwhelm, the overstimulation, the needing to keep up, the comparison, all of the things that I struggled with regularly, but at a much more, an exponential level online. Okay. So the things I was struggling with in my own life. And so that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because it really forced me to figure out who I was and to kind of find myself and find out who is Molly and what is Molly good at and what are the good things about Molly. And I won't go into all of the different paths right now. Perhaps this will come up later. maybe it won't, but I had a meltdown of sorts, like an emotional breakdown
Mhm.
of my entire psyche. I ended up in counseling. My TMJ was so messed up and locked up that I couldn't open my mouth wider than this for over a year. I was surviving on smoothies and applesauce. It was just this larger picture of me feeling like I was trapped in my own life or trapped in my own body, pretending I was somebody that I wasn't, trying to keep up with this image of who I thought my sister was or what she was capable of in the social selling world and how successful she was, trying to keep up with the relationships in my life, trying to keep up with being a new mother, trying to keep up with being a wife, trying to keep up with myself and not knowing how to honor my own needs or experiences and being utterly defeated, overly fatigued in every aspect of my life. So it's not just a cliche. You really do have to meet the bottom before you can rise to the top. And that was my personal bottom, where I think on the surface or on paper, everybody around me was really happy with who I was, and my business was relatively successful. But I'd never felt darker. I'd never been more miserable.
Yeah, I mean, being online is like you wanna talk about all of your insecurities just popping up to the surface. It can feel like a lot, and I think it's so common to feel misunderstood and then just go like, "Who am I really? Who am I r" like, it's kind of a confusing time.
I wasn't myself. I was keeping up with who I thought I should be.
So, okay, and that brings me to my next, I guess, just organic question. How did you figure that out? I mean, was it coaching?
Yeah.
Was it just
It,
kind of a lot of different things?
it was sort of like this. I discovered counseling, and this counselor worked particularly with people who had pain or kind of like self-induced crises crises that led to body or chemical imbalances or disruptions or like TMJ issues, right? So she really helped me identify that my jaw locking from the grinding and the clenching of my teeth at night that was literally causing this ligament issue and this muscular issue in my whole neck and spinal area was really me feeling like I didn't have a voice, me feeling like I wasn't giving myself permission to talk or to be who I was. And she recommended a couple books and a bunch of things that I started reading. The first book that literally started changing my identity around myself, that made me feel like, oh, I'm not alone. This is a thing. It's safe to be this kind of a person. That subsequently led me on the empath journey. But the catalyst to all of that was when she told me to read this book, um, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee Adams. So switching your mindset around how you think about yourself, and then The Highly Sensitive Person by Dr. Aaron. Those were the two books that I read that were sort of in that category of self-help or personal development, that were sort of the first books that I'd read of that kind, where as I was reading the pages, I felt like it was a biography of Molly Engel. It's me. So then that led me on this forward progression journey where I was really taking more ownership of what I wanted. And I pursued this coach who coached people who were in the social selling space around what their concerns and issues and problems were that came up from presenting yourself and marketing yourself and selling a product online. So I was in her membership container for quite some time. And then that prompted me to really seek out who her coach was, which led me to the life coach school, because I discovered through the journey of social selling and then by being in her coaching membership program that I didn't necessarily want to sell a product as much as I wanted to be her. I wanted to coach people. That was the real magic, the real salvation was for me personally, because and you can ask anybody in my life. My sister has told me this numerous times. Other people have told me this, that from that breakdown moment of me literally losing my voice, my being able to open my mouth and talk, to finding a counselor, to then pursuing this coaching membership program, then to going back to school to get this coaching certification myself, they saw such a huge shift and change in my personality and in who I was, how I talked about myself, the things I accomplished for myself, and just in my own joy and happiness. This they saw that happening to me.
They just saw firsthand like this liberating, the not the new you, but the person that you probably were. She just got to come out finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've all had that moment in life where we have the ability to sort of look back and see all of these roads that our life has traversed down. And for this brief glimmer, this brief moment, instead of looking at it in some sort of judgment or shame, you just suddenly see how all of the paths come together and make sense to create the person that you are right now. And oh, the 5 years that I spent in that doing that degree in painting, or the 3 years I spent traveling and being a children's author, or the 4 years I spent as a nanny. Like, I can see how everything culminated and led me to find what I truly believe is my actual gift and purpose on this earth, which is to coach others and help others with the same struggles as me, and to simply tell them, I understand. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. There's hope. Let's talk and find out your story. I really see how all of those things that made up the different versions of me in every decade of my life have created who I am today. And it's a really glorious thing if you have the chance to experience that.
Yeah, and in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. It feels a
No,
little bit confusing, and
it feels
it
painful.
it is so painful.
You and I have talked about that before. And I remember you sent me an article and a podcast audio to listen to about it, where it I described it as feeling like everything around you is just slapping you in the face. That's the way life can often just feel to an empath, to a highly sensitive person, to someone who's wired a little bit different than the majority. And when you have these really dark moments where you've never felt more miserable or more unhappy or more discontent with who you are as a person, and more hopeless and directionless about what your actual gifts or skills are on this earth, why you're even here, it can feel like you have reached a bottom where somebody has shut the lid. It doesn't feel like the jar is going to open, like the top is going to come off. It's not until that beauty of retrospect happens where you can look back and have that gift or have that ability to see how all of those things, like little like rivers leading into a larger body of water, how all of those rivers and pathways needed to be there, needed to be present in your life in order to create this beautiful bounty of water.
For the longest time, and the people that I coach often tell me, how do I stop being this way? I'm like, oh, you can't. And we can be in a real victim centric space in our own heads if we are not careful. But then the hardest thing for us to do is to really take care of ourselves and really advocate for, I'm not going to say yes to all social situations. If I say yes, I'm also probably going to leave early. I will take my own car. I have a set of loose rules, really. When I am feeling that panicky sensation, I get to exit graciously, but I also know that that's what I have to do. So as far as strategies go, how have things changed for you? I mean, being an empath we want to say it's a curse, and it's really not. It's actually a gift, but how do you manage that?
I think one of the biggest ways that I've learned to strategize around the things outside of my control and to still really honor my own needs and empathic ways is huge, is to change the way that I talk about it or think about it. So instead of making the fact that maybe I'm rhythmically going through a season where a lot of circumstances are coming at me that really feel out of my control and are really affecting my energy, instead of like I used to do, instead of me assuming that somehow I have to fix either myself or fix the situation so that I can feel better again, instead, what I do now is simply remind myself that I can be exactly who I am and I can feel whatever I'm feeling, and that I'm safe, and that I'm okay, and that there's nothing wrong with me. And sometimes I have to put my feelings in a bag or a purse or maybe a balloon that you can kind of hold and like push away from you, something that you can carry, something that's sort of outside of me. And I'll just sort of walk around my house or wherever the space is that I'm at, and I'll just sort of feel myself carrying or having the feelings of something that's separate from me, making it not a problem that I'm experiencing this overwhelm or this, sometimes it's like a prickliness or like this crushing thing inside of, right inside of here. Just, I'm just sitting with it. I'm having it. It's here. This is just the way my day is going to look right now, and I'm just going to have it with me. And then as I do that a couple days in a row, I notice that the bag or the purse doesn't quite seem as heavy as it once was. Somehow I get more comfortable with having that feeling. And then this magical thing happens, and you can't prepare for it and you can't expect it. But a circumstance will happen where suddenly you realize that, oh, it's been a couple days. I haven't had that really awful sense of feeling anymore. I made friends with it instead of enemies with it. And I guess it just sort of left town. It went somewhere else for a visit somewhere else. It might come back. It probably will come back. We have an open door policy around here, but it's gone for right now, and I'm really enjoying enjoying that. So I guess basically in a very long-winded way of answering your question, my strategy is to slowly rewire or teach myself to think differently about the thing that I'm experiencing. Understanding that other people and circumstances around me are very challenging to change or control, and that they also have very little to do with me, honestly. And that the way that it affects me, the way that I feel it and sense it is my superpower. And I have the ability to sit with that feeling without making it my enemy. I can make it my friend.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I have a big question, and I know it's what I forget how to pronounce it again.
Idiopathic hypersomnia.
Yes, the big long
Yes.
word. Okay, it's called, okay, break it down for me. Idiopathic hypersomnia. Okay, can you explain what that is, how it started, how that affects you, basically?
So it's a fatigue syndrome. It's a cousin to narcolepsy. And you can actually watch the brain synapses, the neurons firing in the brain differently for, and we'll just call it IH, idiopathic hypersomnia. IH. We'll shorthand it for ease of communication. So you can actually watch you can actually watch someone's brain with IH under a I don't know, the brain scans, right? You can watch their brain communicate, and the wires move differently than somebody who would be considered an awake person or a more awake person. And so it's not that you're not getting enough quality rest at night. Your body actually knows how to rest and sleep really well. It's that regardless of the amount of rest that you get, your brain doesn't know how to send the signal to your body to communicate that it has rested. There's lots of theories. We won't delve into all of that right now. But regardless, your brain has trouble communicating to the rest of your body that it it actually can be awake. And so your brain is constantly operating under the assumption that it hasn't fully rested. And I describe it to other people in this way. If you had an experience where you were at college or some sort of program that you were studying for, and you had this big push, this big test or this big exam, and you just went this 12-hour or 24-hour period where you were just awake and overly caffeinated in order to accomplish whatever this task was. That's the way my brain always feels. It always feels like it's in that overtired, but too much anxiety, needs to fall asleep, but can't fall asleep, overwhelm of fatigue constantly. And so when you mix that fun little cocktail with also being on that spectrum of empathic, highly sensitive person, that 20% of the population that falls under that category, I can really understand why for the majority of my life I thought that I was the problem, because not only was I experiencing and feeling sensually all of the emotions around me, and was I vibing the energy of all of these other extraneous things, but my brain was also operating at this 10 to 20% capacity of tiredness, where if you're just tired in general, depressive thoughts, anxious thoughts, fearful thoughts, bickering, like all of these things are just really normal and commonplace if you're just tired. And then you're also just overwhelmed by your senses constantly. Like, wow, well, this makes so much sense. Life was just always larger, or seemingly larger than I thought I was capable of dealing with.
Have you always had this feeling, or was it all of a sudden adolescence?
Always, always. I've never had a day in my life where I didn't feel this way. It was only the past 6 years, though, 6 years ish, that I actually had a diagnosis and that I understood myself. And that all came from that catalyst of that journey where I decided to go into social selling. I decided to be a stay-at-home mom, work from my phone, sell some products online. That whole journey, those 4 to 5 years of doing that, that led me to the breaking point, which led me to the counselor, and then reading these books, and then finding the coaching, and then seeing some different, that all led me to start getting some exams or studies, or trying to understand myself a little bit better. And I started getting these diagnoses, and some of them were by accident. The IH diagnosis was by accident. It was actually because of my jaw that I got a sleep study test, because they assumed that I was tired because of my jaw issues and what I was doing when I was sleeping. And so my doctor sent me in to get a sleep study test, and nobody expected anything. Nobody thought that I'd come out of there with a cousin to narcolepsy type diagnosis. It floored me. It shocked all of us when the doctor walked into the room and said, "Well, you sleep great, and you aren't doing anything with your jaw at night that would explain any breathing or sleep issues. We ruled that out. The jaw thing is a separate thing. So we're glad that you're seeing your jaw doctor about that. And it's not related to sleep habits." But has anyone ever told you that you have IH? And of course, my first question was, well, huh? What the heck are you even talking about? Yeah. So that's how I found out. And similar to my experience when I read Dr. Aaron's book, The Highly Sensitive Person, which led me to study empath natures, similar to that experience when I received the diagnosis for IH, it felt like I'd been seeing without my glasses on my whole life. And then somebody just dropped these lenses in front of me where everything made sense. The world was so clear. Everything that I thought about myself, that I judged or shamed myself for around not being better or being able to keep up, or the comparison, it just suddenly made sense.
There was like such a huge chance that you would have never even
Yeah.
known.
Yeah. There was a huge
Wow.
chance that I would never have known that. That's what I was talking about earlier, when you have that gift in life to be able to look back and see how all of these pathways have led you to something that made something rather beautiful. And it's easy in the moment and even in retrospect to dissect all of those different paths and look at them under this lens of criticism. Like, why did I go through that? Or why is that the way that I am, or the way that things happened? Or why was that how I spent those 5 years of my life, right? But when you look back and see the tapestry that they all created, and how they all they nothing's wasted. They created this beautiful pattern. So if I hadn't gone through what I went through with choices around the type of business I was going to have and the type of person I was going to be, um, which wouldn't have led me to this jaw issue, and like one step after another, that it seemingly was accidental that I had this sleep latency test, but it wasn't an accident. Everything created this path.
Sounds like it unfolded just the way it needed to unfold, just like how we meet people through these, micro decisions. And then along the way, I
Yeah.
meet somebody like you. You coached me on being an empath, which was, I had a lot of hangups about it. a lot of times, and I've found myself in this category as well, empaths, highly sensitive people, a lot of us can become a bit of a people pleaser. It's a huge challenge for some of us, and it almost feels like a trap for me sometimes. Now that I've been in the coaching world, it's gotten a little bit easier. Has that affected you as well? People pleasing, and how have you kind of managed that?
Tremendously affected me. Tremendously. I like to describe myself as a recovering people pleaser, but it, but truthfully, it's a come and go habit depending on what my needs are in that moment and how I feel like dealing with it. There's a lot of data and tremendously valuable coaches who have explained really, really well why people become people pleasers. But I think for myself personally, the biggest thing is, which feeling am I comfortable with living with for the long? Is living with the situation the way it is right now, the way that that feels in my body, the way that I wake up and experience my life and this particular relationship, is that feeling worse or better than the feeling that comes from me having that conversation around changing what it looks like and what that will feel like to me? And oftentimes, truthfully, the former, just keeping things the way that they are, is what I choose. Because I had an experience where I put up a boundary with someone, knowing that I was people pleasing them, and living with them thinking about me in a certain way was so much worse than if I
Mm.
had just been more authentic in the relationship in the moments as they came up. And so it depends on what the situation is, who the person is in my life. First of all, am I people pleasing with them right now? Am I more worried about how they feel and then how they feel about me than I'm concerned about my own needs and honoring my own self, right? My own authenticity. And when I've answered that question truthfully, and yes, that's exactly what's going on right now, I'm clearly more concerned with them than and how they perceive me. Then the very next question that I ask myself is, okay, if I deal with this in a mature and responsible way with that healthy boundary conversation, what will that change for me? And is there something that I can change right now around how I'm showing up in that relationship right now in a way that where I can honor who I am a little bit better or differently, where I can take off that assumption around how I'm thinking about them or what I'm thinking they need from me? And then, which one feels better to me? Because I never used to do this. I never used to ask myself which one I wanted, which one felt better to me. And it's been really freeing to give myself permission to feel what I want. I can keep feeling this, or I can feel this other thing over here. Both have pros and cons, both have good and bad, but one of them is the choice that's better for me. And I get to choose that one.
Yeah. And one of the beautiful things about coaching somebody is just like you kind of feel seen and heard, and you don't have someone saying, oh, and being an empath is not even a thing. I think that was the most crushing thing. Like, oh, I've just been like acting, and I almost believe you were there for that. I almost believed it. I almost believed this tall tale that there's no such thing. And then I was beating myself up. But when I got back into coaching empaths, because I hit the pause button for a while because I believed this tall tale, maybe that also had to happen, but it got me back into really enjoying. Okay, there's a lot of joy that comes with being an empath. Like we feel so much that the good things are really good too. The creativity that can come out of us. A lot of us are super creative. You're super creative. I did not know that you wrote 2 children's books
I did
until
that.
I was kind
Yes,
of studying for this. I was like, what? And I'm like, of course she did. So getting back to coaching, I know that you're an advocate in creating like your own kind of slow routine, or a gentle, not really slow, but a more gentle routine. And I really I found that very refreshing that someone thought the way I did. Like, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be on, the highway all the time. I mean, I'm ready to take a nice little drive down a country road. Are people surprised when you advocate for them slowing down just a bit?
I think it depends on the person, but for the percent of people that I really feel called to serve, they feel relief. They feel like what you just shared, that someone finally gave them permission for what their spirit had been craving for a long time. And for myself, I sort of came to the realization that I was keeping up with a model of being, a model of living life that didn't really make sense. So as I started studying more, because I geek out in research and studying things and understanding things, I just love it so much. So as I started really delving into this understanding of the cycles of the earth and the way that our world has been, it had it flows, ebbs and flows in these different cyclical seasons, and they all have such a deep, meaningful purpose for what comes next. And then I started realizing, well, if I'm a part of the earth, if I was built to be on this earth as well, like every other animal and flower and tree, and if we know scientifically the ways that even things about the earth benefit us or hinder us, then wouldn't it make sense that I'm designed to flow with the seasons of the earth as well? Why am I trying to create a rhythm for myself that is jarring to the world that I literally inhabit? It really is this habit of culturally where we live, that your schedule and your identity and your life has to flow a certain way in order to keep up with certain expectations and standards of success. And they flow very contrary to the actual earth and the actual way that every other creature on the planet is designed to function and operate.
I was listening to something that had to do with a lot of creativity this morning, a podcast, and they had mentioned that nothing really blooms all the time. Trying to produce something that's going to bloom all the time, every single day, is A, it's a lot of pressure, and B, I'm not interested. I love the creation and waiting for that. Like, I'm getting ready to plant some seeds, and I'm like, I'm not going to expect that that seed is going to turn into the flower tomorrow. I'm going to check on it, and it's going to take some time. But I think this expectation of, I hate using I mean, are we still saying hustle culture? Because I mean, without coming up with a better way to say it, it's just too much.
It's true. And it's something that I found and experienced on a regular basis when I was full time in that social selling world as a marketer, because it's just this constant cycle of striving where you accomplish 1 month, you have your pillars of your goals from the beginning of the month, and then your huge push for the end of the month for your goal. And then it resets and starts over again the next month. And I got so drained by that cycle where my rhythm and my routine had to live within that month instead of within the season of life that I was in, or the season that was on the earth. And yeah, and the only thing that kept coming to me when I thought of a way to describe it was just, it's a ceaseless cycle. It never stops. I just couldn't keep up with it.
Can you give me an example of like what your kind of a slow routine for Molly looks like?
Yes. So it's taken a lot of time to work up to this. I think that the best schedule for my family, and my husband would agree, is the best schedule that works for me. So if I have a schedule that's really honoring me, and I'm able to rest enough, and I'm able to create my work life in the time that I know my brain is operating at the highest level, then I'm a better mom, I'm a better wife. And I think it's important to note here that I homeschool my kids. So when I was talking about creating a business from home where I would coach people, and that I would coach specifically other empaths, other highly sensitive people, other people with chronic conditions or fatigue syndromes or tiredness, people who were also like me, but were also trying to do this other thing, like be an entrepreneur, a coach. I knew that I had to make those work hours fit with also schooling my children, with also having a husband who has this wonky energy that's completely different than me. And he's a firefighter. So he doesn't have a normal Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So it was sort of this push and pull, this painful back and forth of figuring it out. But for where I'm at with my work hours and who my kids are at this season in their life, I have this, I think what I call an imperfectly ideal schedule, because every day is a little bit different and it changes. But I have enough time in the morning to do the things like you were describing, to do the things that I know I need to do in order to energize myself and to wake up in a really healthy, unrushed way. And it was funny what you just shared about the time formats, because I used to have this really organized, itemized schedule as well around what time I did each things at. And then I realized, no, that's not working for me, because then I have so much weight and heaviness coming around judging myself for not being on schedule or being on schedule, when really that's not what my energy needs today. Maybe I don't need to do XYZ at that time today. Maybe I need to do this right here. And intuitively, I need to just be able to rest in that and know what that is. So in my ideal schedule, I have enough time in the morning to be able to do that, to like in coach speak, check in with myself and know what I need, what that morning time looks like. While my kids are also waking up and doing their morning work and their morning routine. So we're both able to sort of mirror each or be next to each other, but separate, doing our own morning wake up routine. And then we have the latter part of the morning with school, like the things that I know that I'm specifically responsible for teaching and helping them with. And then also we have this setup with their school area being near the spot where I do my at-home workout routine. So we'll do those simultaneously together. And my kids will often join me in the workout, which it has its positives and its negatives, but it's all a work in progress, because I like to be a family that embodies what I teach. So if I'm moving my body, I like to teach my kids how to be healthy too, right? And then we do lunch, and then they go and do their online curriculum work with either the help of my mom if my husband's at the firehouse, or my husband will take over if it's his home day, while I come and retreat into my office and I work in the afternoons. And that schedule has felt, I think, the most complete for me. It has actually blown my mind how productive my afternoon hours are once I realized I only had 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours to get my work done, as opposed to, oh, you have this 8 hour day that you have to get all of your work done in. But when you condense that down to the hours that really feel most energetic for you, or feel most doable or possible for you, you can get 8 hours worth of work done in 4 hours. We prove to ourselves a lot that these things that have been created for us aren't true, until we start asking ourselves, well, why was that system created? Like, who decided that you wake up at this time and you work this number of hours and you do it this many days a week? Who decided that? Who did it benefit? Why do we still do things that way? And if I was actually in charge of my own schedule, when do I actually function the best? When do I actually get the most things done? And then if you start to sort of create a schedule to the best of your ability to be authentic to that, you will be amazed at how much better everything else in your life flows, because you've created energetically the time to do the things that you need to do at the times that actually work better for you, not better for someone else in the world who has a completely different profession.
I remember seeing a documentary on noise and light pollution a long time ago, and I was like, I've never thought about that. But just like how maybe this modern society, it's kind of disrupted something, like how our, like just our rhythms can kind of get thrown off of balance a little bit.
And this is an opinion piece from Molly. Don't have the research paper to prove this point, but I think that the rhythms that we live in as a society have completely isolated most right, whenever you're speaking generally you have to be cautious, but it really but it really has created this society where most people are so disconnected from themselves and what they really actually need. They're like robots functioning under these forced lights that have taken over their body, their natural body systems and functions around when to wake, when to sleep, when to rest, when to work, when to play. And our entire psyche has been taken over by these forced lights and these metal structures and these humans constructs of time and space that are completely outside of the earth that we were designed to function in, and really dishonor how we're wired and how we thrive. And then you wonder why so many people are so joyless and they're seeking these dopamine highs from these other places outside of just their own energy capacity.
This is kind of silly, but it's also like I have a lot of like guilty pleasures that seem really boring to some people. What is a small guilty pleasure or a treat that always makes you feel good, no matter what's going on?
Escapism,
How? Like reading, writing?
either through a book or
Mm.
through film. I have a very active imagination. I love going to that other place in my mind where I can either be different or I can create characters or a life that's different. It really gets me creative and in my energetic space. And I really need to take times for myself to just really allow that to happen. So depending on the week is, what mood I'm in, if I have a good book that I'm reading or that was recommended, or like a favorite go-to movie that really takes me to that exciting, energetic, dopamine type of place, I put those things on my schedule as things to sort of like little treats to look forward to, because we're busy. We have these lives where we're responsible for other people or for our own work, and many of us do work 9 to 5s, and you don't have a lot of joy or play built into your life. So make something that's like that for you as a treat or as a reward. So I just hosted and led this kind of big deal workshop in this one program where I coach. And I knew that regardless of the outcome of the workshop, regardless of my pro to con list, right, that I was going to carve out that evening to look a certain way around either reading a book or watching a fun movie. And of course, I'd have like a treat, like a food item or treat with it, because I knew that that would be fun for me and it would be something that I would look forward to afterwards. And life is the simple things. It's one simple little thing after another. And you can have a really lovely life with just one little treat. You can really enjoy your life in a way that people in grand palaces never will.
That reminded me when you were talking about creativity. Now, I mean, you've written 2 children's books. I feel like if I am not creative, I'm being dramatic, of course, I'm dead inside, okay? How important is your creative side to your life as a whole? Not just in business or your personal, but like that it's almost like that what needs to come out creatively.
Well, have you ever had a time in your life where you're not eating something specific to your nutrition that you know you should? Like maybe you're not drinking enough water, or maybe you're not eating enough protein or fiber, and you notice something in your body that just doesn't feel very well because it's missing that one component or that one piece. Or maybe you see a doctor and you have labs run and they're like, oh, you're really low in this. Right, that's creativity for me. So I'll often go through these times in my life where I'm not making time for that joy or that play and giving myself space to be creative, and I'll turn into this really boring, like overly enlarged left brain thinking person who just becomes very robotic and monotone. And my husband will kindly point out, like, maybe you need to go and crack open your oils and get a canvas out and, maybe paint a little bit? Or why don't you go to your desk and light a candle, make yourself a cup of tea and write something? He'll notice it in me sometimes before I notice it in myself. But it's like air. It's like protein. It's like drinking water. It's part of who I am. And I need to have that time.
Yeah. I do see a lot of empaths if they push it down. We get really angsty, I guess, is that the word I want to use? And it's almost painful.
Creativity is a way that empathic natures release some of that extra energy. And when you're not releasing that energy, where's it going to go? How is it going to affect you?
Speaking of empaths, I like your little tagline. You take care of everyone else. Let me take care of you. Everybody that's watching and listening, that is how you feel when you get to chat with Molly.
It's something that I see in myself and in other empathic people, that we burden ourselves with not only our own things, but other people's as well. And it's really easy to feel like you don't have a safe place to go to decompress from all of that. And so I really like to think of my sessions as you meeting with a friend where you just get to talk and vent and sort it all out with someone who can gently and lovingly guide you through it in a way that feels productive. So have you ever had those venting sessions with a friend where you actually end up feeling worse afterwards? Yeah. And this this is a time for you to just completely be who you are, struggling with exactly what you're struggling with zero shame or judgment, like you're talking to a friend about it. Except I'm not going to leave you there and say, you're right, everything is wrong with you and it is a mess and it's hopeless. I'm actually I'm actually going to say to you, there's honestly and truthfully a way to understand this that's not only going to fill your tank and empower you, but is also going to bring your hope and your joy back. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can do that. And it's because I was there. I was that person who was posting online, feeling so disconnected from where I thought I would be in life or who I thought I would be, feeling so overwhelmed by the people I had to take care of. And so I genuinely love to coach people who are in that same place. And I love to look at them and say, I actually really, really understand. And trust me, it gets better.
And that it's almost like also a message of hope. If there's one message that you'd like any empath or highly sensitive person going through it, what would it be?
You're not broken. You're exactly the way that you should be. There's nothing wrong with you.
Um, Thank you so much, Molly, for agreeing to come on. And I love having conversations with other empaths and other coaches who are empaths. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been an honor, an absolute honor.
Okay, everybody. We'll see you soon. Remember, be kind to yourself and be kind to others.